record right now. So we are going to record this one as well. And we will post this onto the YouTube page so that everybody will be able to look back on this in the future as well. My name is Scott Brown, and I am your Program Quality Director for the year. That means that I am kind of in charge of every way that you interact with Toastmasters throughout the year, whether it's your club meetings, your club contests, pathways, how we do area visit reports, contests, conferences, Fall Education Day, TLIs, club officer trainings, everywhere that you interact with Toastmasters kind of falls under my purview for the year. And we're going to try to do a bunch of different things this year. And I think you've already seen that we've stepped up our game a little bit and done some different stuff this year. Now, I've only been in Indiana for about 17 or 18 months, somewhere around there, maybe 19 months. I got here in December of 2018 from Orlando, Florida. Yes, that was a purposeful move. I did not enter witness protection. I started as a Toastmaster in Orlando, Florida in District 84. My wife got promoted and we went to District 47, which is South Florida. We lived in Fort Lauderdale. And then she changed jobs and we went back to Orlando, Florida, back to District 84. And then she got promoted again. And we ended up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, the home of Vera Bradley, which is where she works. And we realized that her next promotion was across the hall instead of across the country. So I had thought about running for the trio for a couple of years, but now that I know we're going to be someplace for a while, I thought this was the perfect time, and I'm so happy and privileged to be able to serve as your PQD for the year. Now, I've been a club officer since the first year that I was a Toastmaster. And it wasn't so much that I volunteered to be a club officer, it was somewhat that I was voluntold to be a club officer. Anybody out there have that conversation where you ended up being a club officer and walked away and went, how did that just happen? A lot of us, right? A lot of us end up taking on our roles for the first time because of that. But I loved it. I have been a president 9 times. I've been a VPE 8 times. I've been a VPM a couple of times, VPPR a couple of times. I'm on my 11th and 12th clubs right now that I've been a member of over the past 8 years. So I've been out there and I've seen a lot of stuff and gathered a lot of best practices and a lot of bad practices too. And we're trying to create the best practices that we can and the best experiences we can for all of you as Toastmasters and for all of your clubs, which is why we're doing it this way this year. So that's me in a nutshell, so you have an idea of who I am and why we're doing this way. So a lot of you raised your hand when you said, we kind of got voluntold. And I imagine that that means that some of you may have some questions about what you want to do and about how this whole thing is going to work for you throughout the course of this year. As we go through the meeting tonight, if you have questions, I just ask that you please just unmute yourself and just ask away. This is not going to be a super formal meeting. I am not formal in life, so I don't think that we should try to be formal here when I don't do that in real life as a whole. This is a conversation. Nick has met me a few times and Nick knows that I am more about the relationship than I am about the formality, and I want this to be your time here. So if you have questions, ask. We're going to start by asking you a big question. Who has questions? Who out there has questions that you want to have an answer for? Kevin, what can we make sure that we cover tonight?
Hey, Scott, this is Kenneth speaking. Hope your evening is doing well. I have a quick question regarding about when you're doing officer roles, you want to do it for a purpose, right? That's my biggest question. So when you do an officer role, you need to have a vision behind it, right? And I'm just curious, how do you make that vision a work in progress as an officer?
We will absolutely touch on that later tonight. That is something that I am incredibly passionate about, to make sure that as you invest your time in this, that you get something out of it as well. So we will definitely touch on that in the second half hour tonight. But that is a great question, and thank you for that, because nobody's asked that yet, and everyone's kind of always on that, when I've gone down that conversation path. So thank you. We will definitely talk about that tonight. What else can we make sure we touch on tonight? What other questions are out there we want to make sure that we touch on for everybody tonight? Nobody? 30 Toastmasters and nobody has any questions about your roles or about anything. I have no idea who this is, but Airband from 9146. If that's not, oh, glasses. Anerban, sorry. Is it Anerban?
It
Did I
is.
pronounce that right?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I am extremely new to Toastmaster. I mean, I'm probably on my 3rd month, and we had a lot of people leaving our organization, and I work for CNO, and that's how I got into it as I was voluntold. I mean, and so everything is a big question mark for me. I joined for my purpose to, for my, growth of, making my public speaking better. And now I'm at Sergeant at Arms, and I don't even know what is the basic expectation, how to, get through with it. What are the things around it? So, um, and that's why basically I joined into, find out more about the role, find out what is the expectation, what's the, code of conduct for an officer, and so on and so forth.
So have you had a chance to watch either the module training or the recorded sessions that we have posted on our YouTube channel?
I haven't, and as I said, it was such a rush for me that I haven't had a chance. I figured that I'll start off, I'll get in my, just get myself as you get pushed into the water and start swimming kind of thing. I'm just
Perfect.
trying to take an approach.
Well, let me give you the first floaties that you're going to get at Toastmasters. On the District 11 Toastmasters website, the District 11 Toastmasters website, so not TI International, but the District 11 Toastmasters website, on the left-hand side, you're going to see a tab that says Education. If you click on that tab, about halfway down the first picture, there's going to be a little link that says, click here to go to our YouTube channel. If you go to the YouTube channel, we have posted all of the roundtables. We posted all of the live sessions that we did, all of the education sessions that we did when the spring conference ended up getting canceled. Everything that we are doing this year that we hit record for, we are posting on that YouTube channel. So I encourage you, go there. Watch the YouTube video for the Sergeant at Arms training, and for all of you, for whatever training, whatever role you're in, make sure you watch one of those videos. It gives you a great explanation of what the role is going to ensue for, is going to be a part of for this year. The other thing is on the District 11, on the Toastmasters International website, they have a club officer handbook. Back in the day, we actually were handed these handbooks. We actually killed trees and gave these to all of the people who came to all of these trainings. Everybody got one of these. Well, Toastmasters got smart a couple years ago and just put this online. So if you go to Toastmasters International and then the top bar to search, just type in Club Officer Handbook, you can download it. And it is a great explanation through here. It's kind of how Toastmasters works. From all of the club officer positions to Toastmasters International, how all of it works. Just download that and it'll be a great guide for you as you get started on your journey. So very good question to start with. Thank you, anybody. What other questions? Anybody else have questions before we get going here? No? All right. Nick, I am going to call on you to ask you a question to start this tonight, because I know you've been on a couple of these before and you have an idea of how this whole thing works. A lot of us have been club officers multiple times, and some of us have taken those club officer roles and ended up transitioning into area roles or division roles or district roles. As you look back upon your journey and you look out over this crowd of brand new club officers, what are the things you know now that you wish you knew then, so you can help flatten their learning curve? What do you know now that you wish you knew then?
Thanks, Scott. What do I know now that I wish I knew then? You have everybody on this call. You have Scott. You have your area director. You have myself. You have a network of folks who are willing to help you. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. You're not alone. I have questions every day that I'm still trying to figure out. The second part of that is don't be afraid to question things, because you might go into a club meeting and you do what the officer before you did, and you think, maybe there's a different way of doing this. Now, I'm not saying go in and completely change your agenda, but don't be afraid to float new ideas by your club and ask, hey, would you mind trying it this way? And if we don't like it, we can go back to the old way. That's fine. Two things: ask for help. Don't be afraid to try new things.
Fantastic.
Scott?
Nick, thank you very much. Thank you for getting started. When you meet me, you'll realize very quickly that my favorite question to ask, and I ask it almost every day, is what if? What if we did something a different way? It's a great question to be able to ask within your club. How many of you have been in the same club? We know that we have one on here who's been in the same club for 3 months. But how many of you have been in the same club, going to the same meeting for an extended period of time, a couple of years? How many of you go out and visit other clubs on a regular basis? You notice how the number of hands all of a sudden went down significantly for who goes to clubs on a regular basis and who goes to different clubs on a regular basis? When you go to the same club on a regular basis, you see the same stuff, don't you? You go and you end up seeing the same things, doing the things the same way, and you get really comfortable and complacent that that just must be the way to do Toastmasters. But the great thing with having so many clubs out there, every club does stuff just a little bit differently. And Kevin, you raised your hand that you've gone to some other clubs on your travels, correct? I saw your hand go up.
Yes, Scott. I recently went to the Pioneer Club up in Greenwood, their virtual session, and I was just trying to get an idea of how they interacted with each other. And when I attended their VR Zoom session from the one Pioneer Club in Greenwood, I understood their dynamics were totally different from a public to a corporate, but the main idea was they were having fun in general.
What was there anything specifically you saw there that you're like, oh, that's really different. That's interesting. Maybe I can take that back to my club.
The one thing I got from it was the way how they interacted with each other. They had a unique perspective about the best speech of the day. That was one thing. They also had about the speeches that were interacting from knowing for the members, but also themselves. And lastly, that the atmosphere was more alive because as I see you, you see me, we have our webcams on, and most of the corporates, some of them are blanked out. I respect you don't have the perfect makeup, but I think to create the human interaction is the face-to-face. So you got to train your body from I'm looking from an actual person to the webcam.
Yes, that is very true. And I still find myself looking at the person talking, so I'm not looking at the little white dot. Thank you very much. That's fantastic. Jason, I saw you nodding vehemently that yes, I've seen those things too. Have you visited some other clubs as well?
I started off with the Pioneer Club many years ago. And then I'm now part of a corporate club and a public club. And it's interesting how the agenda is just slightly different. In the corporate club, we introduce every single role at the very beginning. And in the public club, we only introduce the grammarian, table topics, the grammarian, timer, and general evaluator. And then we go right into speeches. So just a little bit different.
But neither of them are wrong, correct? That they both work for you, right?
Right.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jason. So a question, how many of you have table topics evaluators? A couple of you have the table topics evaluator that's out there. What about how many of odd counters that actually have a bell that ding when you say an audible crutch, like an or an or so, or a double clutch? Anybody have those out there? How many of you vote for best speaker of the day? Or best table topics of the day, or best evaluator of the day, or best something of the day? A couple of you, all right. What about quiz masters? Who is a quiz master that listens throughout the course of the meeting and then at the end of the meeting asks questions to the club to see who is paying attention to help on listening skills as opposed to just speaking skills? I see a couple of thumbs up in here as well. There's lots of different roles out there. Just because your club has done something the same way all the time doesn't mean it has to do things the same way all the time. It's perfectly fine to try to shake things up a little bit, to get people out of their comfort zone a little bit, to help them grow. Because none of us joined this to be a better Toastmaster. None of us came here because we thought we had all the questions, all the answers. We didn't even have all the questions. It's okay for every club to be a little bit different and to try some different things. The only way to do that is to go and experience different clubs in different times. The nice thing with Zoom is, and all the online meeting platforms that are out there, we're only restricted by the amount of time that we have in a day. We no longer have that geography restriction. I'm still a member. I still visit the clubs that I was in Florida on a regular basis now. I visit a club in Toronto on a regular basis. Those are not close to Fort Wayne, Indiana, but yet I still go and have friendships and relationships, and we talk about things and we all grow together. So if you're looking for other ways to do things, don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone and go visit somewhere else. We're so passionate about that. We actually have something called a Club Ambassador program that is launching later this month, or I guess beginning of September now. We're almost at the end of August here. And it is a program to incentivize members to go visit other clubs, to go learn different things, and to go build different relationships in different places. We want this to be a community of Toastmasters that's transformational. And the only way to do that is to help you get out and to go visit other clubs. So does it make sense to where you can go find some of those things and why we're so adamant about helping you to get out in some of those places? Thumbs up if you're on board with that. Yeah? Very cool. All right. So how many of you, I'm just curious out there, how many of you have been a club officer previously that you're repeating a role? Thomas, Jason, Thornton, Rhonda. Okay. I'm going to open this up to everybody who has been a club officer previously. And feel free to unmute yourself and just chime in here. I would like to know what you know now that you didn't know then, that you think is important to communicate to a new generation of club officers so that they don't make the same mistakes that we made when we first started out. Because let's face it, we all messed up. None of us knew what we were doing. We all kind of figured it out as we went. So what are the things that you want to communicate to somebody else just starting this process?
I think one of the most difficult things that I faced when I was vice president of education is getting people to sign up for speeches and to progress through pathways. And just by happenstance, I started staying at the end of the meetings a little bit longer to help people put things away. And we just started chatting. And the more that I stuck around and went and talked to each person individually and just kind of hung out with them for a couple minutes, then all of a sudden they would start coming in and doing their speeches. And it was like that personal touch, and then asking them later on of, hey, how's it going with your path? Do you need help? Do you need a mentor? That they started getting a little bit more engaged. And that kind of blew my mind because I figured, hey, we're all here to improve. We all came here voluntarily, so we're all just going to jump in and go through the path as quickly as we can to learn as much as we can.
Thank you very much. Relationships are incredibly important within Toastmasters. They are paramount to Toastmasters. Think about how often you have members that have joined clubs that they're petrified to get up and just state their name in public. That's a real fear. There's a reason why. There's a commercial that starts with people's biggest fears are public speaking. It's a real thing. So relationships matter so much. Thank you for bringing that out, Jason. Thomas, I saw you unmuted yourself and had raised your hand as well. What would you like to pass on to the next generation?
Well, I'm in a closed club that's basically with students, and we tend to basically have a whole new group of people about every year. Yep. So it's trying to build a continuity has been very difficult, and I had a co-advisor. Now I'm the club is basically mine, and I have been falling down on like really building the relationships strongly enough to get people excited. So now we have 9 members when we were 20. And I think the real lesson that I'm trying to manifest is build the relationships stronger with my officers and the students who stick around. I've never done the president. I've been assigned treasurer because I have to do that because of the school thing. But really working with the officers, I've sort of let them run things without pushing to make things happen, but I had another person who was helping with that. And I kind of didn't realize how important the co-advisors were, and now just the advisor is important for students. I mean, we're talking about college-age kids.
Which club are you with, Kelly or Purdue or Ivy Tech? Or
I'm at the University of Southern Indiana, which is in Evansville, Indiana.
Okay. So
it's a
one of the
state
other
school.
great places that you can go to, that you can find some support, we have a bunch of college clubs that are out there. So Purdue has, I think, 3 clubs on Purdue's campus. Ivy Tech has at least 2 or 3 clubs. There's one up in South Bend area. There's another one that's in Indianapolis. Kelly School of Business has a club that's out there. So reach out to some of those other clubs and the area directors for them, because they have some folks like you that are in charge of keeping the club going, and they all work together as kind of a collective for how do we do this, because we're in a separate kind of a little bubble that not everybody else is in. And maybe share some best practices between you. The more that you can align yourself with folks going through the same thing as you, the easier it's going to be. You don't have to keep reinventing the wheel, just making a better wheel.
That's a cool idea. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Thornton, it seems like you were trying to chime in there for a second, or maybe you were just readjusting yourself, but I think you also raised your hand that you were a previous club officer. What would you want to pass on to the next generation?
Yeah, for me, I think as a sergeant at arms, I think of the classic sergeant at arms. You're kind of like the muscle of the group, so to speak. No, you're not beating people up or taking too long. It's a reevaluation of what you're ensuring that I'm aligning to the existing Toastmasters guidelines, but I also think that there's got to be an element of flexibility. There's going to be times when they're going to say, hey, Sergeant at Arms, can you go do this? Okay. So understanding what the guidelines are and allowing for flexibility, because there's going to be times when you are going to have folks that aren't going to be there. And I think that that's what you have to be able to adjust. That's the basic bobbing and weaving that you need to be able to think through at all times. How many times have we been in a meeting where someone has not shown up just because it just happens? That same kind of mentality you have to have in any officer role. So what I'm saying could be extrapolated across any type of officer role, I think.
Yeah. So I'm curious, as a sergeant of arms, how has your role changed now that we are all online instead of in person? Because you no longer have to go and take a lectern with you and timing lights and a suitcase and a coat of arms in case there's trouble or anything else.
Yeah, well, for me, I don't actually have to travel to another building because at a corporate club, I'm in one building, it takes place in another. The other thing is now we've got the technology aspect to deal with, right? We've got a WebEx, whereas before you're dealing with just reserving a room. Now you've got things where, oh, the WebEx didn't show up for me, or I got the old WebEx, not the new WebEx. So that sprinkling of technology, you just need to be able to adapt and overcome on that.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you very much, Thornton. Thank you very much for that. So as your clubs have transitioned onto online meetings, there's different roles that people have to play now, because we no longer have to go out and find a space. We no longer have to travel to a space. We just get to kind of go to our living rooms or couches, wherever they are, wherever Nick is. Still, that picture is amazing. We get to go to those places and sit in shorts. Like pants optional meetings became a thing. We don't know how that happened, but it did. And I don't think we're going back. So within that, some of the club roles have changed a little bit too. It's no longer just kind of one person's responsibility to find a place, but it is going to be, but you need somebody who can manage the technology of the meetings. So somebody needs to be able to train other members to how to use the technology for the meetings. How many of you have members in your clubs that when we went online just disappeared because they did not want to be part of an online meeting? Everybody has had that, right? Especially some long-term members that have been out there that have just kind of walked away, that said, no, I'm just not, this isn't my thing. That's not what I signed up for. And they walked away. Different situations cause for different leadership. And as club officers, we need to be able to figure out how to re-engage some of those folks that might be incredibly fearful of talking through a computer and sitting in the living room and having a meeting instead of that face-to-face interaction. Raven, I see you turned your video on and your camera on, or your camera and your audio on. So I have a feeling that you might want to chime in here. No? You're like, no, that wasn't the intention. So sorry. Got it. All right. Thorne, you did say one thing that's kind of important. That's an important message here. Different WebEx meetings, different invitations. I know Ron and I were talking about this when we first got on the call. Did anybody notice that there's only one club officer training link for all of our club officer trainings this year on Zoom? that no matter which one you go to, it's the same link for every single one? That's on purpose, because we know that folks lose emails. We know that that happens on a regular basis. Scott's like, yep, that's me. I do that too. I just had to ask Jean to send me some stuff that I know she sent me, because I have no idea where I filed it. I filed it someplace where I wouldn't lose it. I lost it. But if you use the same recurring meeting numbers on a regular basis, you don't have to keep trying to find a new place, and members don't have to go looking for where to go. It's just one link they go to on that place and they come back to forever. How many of you have your links posted on your club websites? Nobody, wow. How many of you have club websites? A couple, okay. Toastmasters came out with a few months ago and said, hey, if you have meetings, feel free to put those on your club websites. You can put that onto your website. When somebody goes on to find a club and they find you, you can put your link on there. Does anybody use Free Toast Host for scheduling meetings or for your club websites? Perfect. Great place to be able to embed your link for your meetings and just keep that link the same. Just let it be a Zoom link that's a recurring meeting, so there's no start and end date to it, so people can just keep coming back. Or let it be the same Microsoft Teams link or the same WebEx link, so people come back to the same place on a regular basis, and it makes people more apt to find you again. Because when we have visitors, sometimes the reason they don't come back is they can't find us a second time. They forget how they got to this place in the first time. They're like, I met Nick, this guy who lives on a boat on a lake, and that was really cool, but I don't know where that boat was. I can't find that again. So use the same links over and over again. It'll make your life a lot easier for that as well.
And you said those platforms, Scott, were WebEx and Team links?
Microsoft Teams. If you have Microsoft 10, it includes Microsoft Teams, which is basically Zoom by Microsoft. And in the past few months, they have upped their game significantly. It rivals everything that we can do on Zoom. You can now do on Microsoft Teams, with the exception of paying for it, because it comes part of Microsoft 10. So there's some other options out there. WebEx is another option out there. GoToMeetings is an option that's out there. Skype. Google has its own, I forget what Google's is called. Facebook launched one that's a little bit unsteady, but it's like Facebook Rooms, I think. It's on Facebook Messenger Rooms that they have. So there's lots of different options out there. Pick the one that works for you and then just stick with it, so folks can find you on a regular basis. So on that thought, how many of you have so many members in your club that you can't fit them all onto a meeting?
I want that problem.
How many of you had so many members on your when you guys were meeting in person that you had to keep looking for bigger spaces?
No, we had that challenge when we were physical.
You did have that challenge when you were physical?
Yeah, and we actually found a new location and have to vote up on it later this evening.
Fine. All right. Nice. So as you're trying to attract members, is it different to attract them online than what it is to attract them at a physical place?
You know, it's crazy because you mentioned it before. Hammond Business Speakers is a group of entrepreneurs and business owners in the Midwest. And the bulk of them relied on that camaraderie and coming together. Mm-hmm. Once we touched the virtual platform with this pandemic, they're still paying members, they're just not present. And I've talked with a couple of them privately. They are intimidated by, like you said, sitting and talking in front of a computer. What I've found out is through like some of the 21-day challenges that we do with fitness and meditation, there are quite a few people that are now doing blogs and different things like that. And they now realize that Toastmasters is a way to practice their presentation skills to prepare them for their blogs. So that's why when you and Tyson and I were talking with Jerry, that's why that interests me so. And that may be a platform where we can bridge the gap, because I don't know what this new normal is going to look like. The space that we are supposed to vote on is phenomenal. It's a large enough space where we can get up to 32 people comfortably with the 6-foot distance. So it's a huge space. but it also has 2 huge projector screens that could be used virtually as well.
That's nice. That's a great setup.
Yeah, I mean, we have been so fortunate. It was just a diamond in the rough, and it's on the far west side of Hammond, Indiana,
Okay.
right off of 169th and Grant Street.
Okay.
Drive past it all the time on the expressway, would have never stopped.
Nice. So it kind of opens up a big question here. So we have these spaces, we attracted people, and we built our clubs around these specific things, and then everything changed. So how do we go find members now? Because no one's going to walk into our meeting room right now, and hopefully nobody's walking into your living room right now, because that'd be creepy and wrong. They shouldn't be members. Those are called stalkers.
Stalkers, right?
So how do you find members during this time? How have you been successful in attracting people and going out and figuring out where they are and drawing them in? How have you done that? Because everybody has that need right now.
Surprisingly, our club, which is not technically a closed club, but it is a corporate club, we often don't draw people from outside, every now and then. But in the past week, maybe 2 weeks, I've gotten 2 requests from people. I got one today and one last week. Unfortunately, the one who called me last week, her mailbox is full and she never answers her phone when I call her back. But I found it interesting that all of a sudden, without doing anything for the outside, like I said, our focus tends to be corporately, we're drawing attention. And I don't know what the reason is, but I'm glad to see it.
That's good. How many of you have something that you're doing on purpose that we can repeat? Jason.
There's 2 things that we started doing on purpose. One, our VP of PR is creating social media posters that include really good inspirational quotes and puts those out there. Or when we just recently have someone achieve a pretty high award, and so did a little profile with their picture and explained who the person was and what they achieved and how long they've been with Toastmasters. So that's one way. And then we have a couple of members that routinely go to Chamber of Commerce meetings or other meetings of that type, Rotary Club. And since they're all meeting now virtually as well, a lot of people start to ask questions, or the conversation comes up of how comfortable people are in this scenario. And immediately they fire up with, hey, if you want more practice at this, come over here and join us in Toastmasters.
Absolutely. Anybody out there have LinkedIn pages for your clubs?
On the club.
Think about starting. You don't pay anything to start a LinkedIn page, but if you start a LinkedIn page, who is on LinkedIn right now? Who are the folks that are on LinkedIn the most right now? People that are transitioning jobs, people that have lost jobs, people that are trying to figure out how to do their job remotely now. That is a place that Toastmasters talks to very intimately. We give people the opportunity to learn how to fail in private to succeed in public. I've always said that Toastmasters is the greatest place to make a complete fool of yourself, to push yourself way beyond where you thought you could possibly go, to purposely fail forward so you can learn something and then apply what you learned out there in the real world. Well, LinkedIn is one of those real world places that folks are trying to find some place to grow and they don't know where to go. Create LinkedIn pages for your clubs. Instagram. There's a whole generation that loves Instagram that doesn't do Facebook because that's their parents' social media. Twitter, great place for conversations. TikTok, if it doesn't get banned, is a great place for youth and for short videos. Think about how often we do little videos and short speeches, like table topics that are a perfect fit for a TikTok setting. Don't be afraid to experiment with new platforms out there to try to draw in folks that can use us that might not even know that we're there. So don't be afraid to do something different. Have we ever had that conversation with someone that somebody said, what's Toastmasters? And you're like, how do you not know what Toastmasters is?
Actually,
give them the opportunity to find that. Booker, what's that?
Yeah, actually quite frequently. And even on my personal Facebook page, I just posted an announcement that if you want to hone in on your skills, if you're shut in and you just want to interact with people, stop by Toastmasters. You know, and I gave them the time and everything. So you're exactly right. You are, and these are things that I'm like taking a ton of notes to go over in the board meeting this evening at 7.
Nice.
Yeah, because the concern and what was mentioned to me earlier today is, well, Booker, how are we going to get these members back?
Yep.
And I told them, well, they know where we are and they'll find us. We're sending emails. We're making phone calls. Now it's their move. But the whole focus is this newness.
Yes.
New members, new opportunities, and we'll combine the new with the old and make it grow. And this is where I see Toastmasters going. And we discussed this. You know, we've got friends and buddies, business partners in Toronto, in Trinidad, in Haiti, over in Japan. So we can really have an international face virtually.
Absolutely.
And I'm loving it. Denise Crowder and I, the area director, we're working on plugging in spots for speakers in other clubs within the district.
Absolutely.
So you're not always just speaking at your club.
Yep.
So,
That's
yeah.
fantastic. The more that we work as a community, the better we're going to all be. We shouldn't all be individual clubs trying to figure this out on our own.
Exactly.
If we work together as a community, we share resources and knowledge, and nobody has all the questions, let alone all the answers. And we can share that so much better.
Well, and I'm going to tell you, Scott, I'm going to steal your fail in private and then succeed in public. I'm stealing that. You'll hear it again.
Fantastic. Please do. Please do. All right. So we talked about membership a little bit, but there's one other huge thing that I want to make sure we covered tonight. It was a question that was asked earlier, and I think this is a really big thing. So how many of you have a mentor within your club? When you started, you came in and you found a mentor. How many of you have a Toastmasters mentor or had one? Only a couple of us.
Yeah, we're too new.
Okay. The Toastmasters mentorship program is a wonderful program to help develop the mentor-protege relationship as someone is starting on the path down Toastmasters. Because let's face it, our meetings are confusing. We clap incessantly. People are standing up and sitting down and shaking hands and dinging bells and voting for stuff. And there's protocols for things that you don't do anywhere else in the world. We're a confusing club. We're even more confusing in person than we are online, because you have people standing up and sitting down and going up to the front and coming to the back. And why are we doing these things? The mentorship program is to help you understand Toastmasters and help you work through those first couple of speeches. Once you get past that, though, the concept of mentorship, I think, becomes even more important, because those are the folks that you find that probably aren't in your individual club, but are somewhere around you with friends you've made somewhere that help you not just on the Toastmasters path, but how do you apply that Toastmasters path outside of Toastmasters? They're the ones that help you figure out what we're doing here, how is it relevant out there? And then you became club officers. And that's a whole different set of skills. So I'm curious, how has anybody here reached out to find a mentor as a club officer? Nobody. That's fascinating. So I highly, what's up, Booker?
Not nobody. I'm not supposed to, but
Why is that?
I bug Denise all the time.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So the concept of mentors and when you're a club officer, is this a different skill set and a different situation than what you were when you first joined Toastmasters? Is your role a little bit different as a club officer?
Definitely.
Are more people looking at you to have answers now than what they did when you first walked in that first week?
Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Big difference, right?
Definitely.
Find someone that will walk with you, that will help answer some of those questions, that has been there before, that maybe is only a couple of steps in front of you in their journey, but knows things that can help you and share experiences, and you can band together and you can become a more formidable team. And there's a couple places to go find club mentors. Ask the folks that were, your predecessors in your club. So who was the last sergeant at arms if you're sergeant at arms? Who is the immediate past president if you're the club president? Ask your area directors, your past area directors, your division directors, your trio members. All of us are in touch with members all around the state, all around the district, that we can help you find folks that can walk with you to help you have a more successful term as a club officer. But I highly encourage you to have somebody who's mentoring you so that you're more successful and you don't keep making the same mistakes that everybody else did. There's a whole new slew of mistakes we can make. I don't want to keep making the same ones. I want to make new ones. That's how it's fun. That's how we grow. So find yourself a mentor for a club officer. And the other thing I strongly encourage you for, a year from now, you're going to have put in 12 months invested in your club and helping your members get better. But how did you get better? I encourage you to come up with a plan, come up with a goal. What is it that you want to learn this year that you can use this platform and this opportunity as a club officer to develop some sort of a skill, some sort of a talent that you may need down the road in your career or in your life, that this gives you the opportunity to fail in private so you can succeed in public? What is it that you're trying to do? So has anybody thought of that this year? Has anybody kind of come up with, I should probably be investing my time and know why I'm doing this, so I'm getting something out of it? Has anybody come up with one of those this year? Kevin, what was yours?
Hello. So Scott, for that question about having purpose, I think it's trying to go outside the comfort zone of your own self, because sometimes there's always that part of our lifetime that we should have done this or that, but this is the perfect time to do it now because we never know what can happen later on in the road later on, but we won't know until we try. And I always felt like taking the president position within the club I'm representing from CAP in Columbus, Indiana, and my fellow TOS officers present right now, is trying to learn how to become a leader and how to fail like a leader, but as well as grow as a leader, and try to use as a leverage of, it isn't just you're going to do this in resume, you're trying to be a better self of yourself from years to come, and try to keep it going much as you can. And the best part of it is giving back in life in a good way. So
absolutely,
that's what I love about it in general, is try to give it back in a good way to good people.
Fantastic. Thank you. That is very well said, Kevin. I'm going to challenge you to make it even more specific, though. So not just to become a leader, but what is the thing that you want to learn from this? What is the one thing you want to walk away with a year from now that you can look back and say, I did this during this year? I'll be honest, the thing that I'm trying to do this year, I am horrible with technology. I grew up playing Pong. Now, you have to be of a certain age to even know what Pong was. I went from Pong, I skipped Atari and all those other ones in between, and then went to PlayStation. So I do not get technology. I did not understand how to even turn on a computer until 1998. I'd been out of college for 7 years. I don't get technology. So my goal this year is to get comfortable with speaking on camera, editing, posting, doing vlogs, all those things that I need to do for real life. This is a great place to practice. So that's a specific skill that I'm trying to learn to get better here, to mess up in front of all of you in this non-judgmental zone. So when I go out and do it in public, I'm not a laughing stock. I'll be perfectly fine to be a laughing stock amongst friends, but not necessarily strangers.
Exactly.
So find that thing that you really want to try to figure out. What is it that you want to do? How do you want to grow with that one specific skill? And if you can look back a year from now knowing that you're better at that thing, then this was by far a great investment in your time. And if you can do that while helping other people figure out their thing that they want to try to learn for this year, that's all that much better. Just like Kevin said, you're trying to make the tribe as a whole better instead of just you yourself better. If you can do that, it's been a well worth investment. Any questions, any thoughts? Any thoughts on that? Does that make sense? Has anybody thought of doing that before and just like, oh, that's kind of a good idea. Maybe you should try that this year. All right, very cool. So we are about 10 minutes till top of the hour. I want to make sure that we have time for the questions that we didn't get to that maybe you were thinking that somebody would just answer. So what questions are out there that you have as a club officer that we can answer, whether it's from a district level, a division level, a Toastmasters level, a club level? Whatever it is, we'll answer anything that you ask, hopefully correctly.
Yeah, this is Rajesh.
Yes.
Earlier you said, mentioned about best practices and bad practices, and
Correct.
especially when you said bad practices, that got my attention.
Yeah.
So if you have a list, I mean, can you share like what are the top 2 or 3 bad practices? Just to want to make sure you're not doing those.
Sure. Number one bad practice, no fist fights in the club. I've been to a club that fights broke out. That was not fun. The accumulated age of the 2 people in the fist fight was about 165 to 180. It was hysterical and wrong in many different ways. So no fist fights. That should definitely be number 1. 2, no trying to poison members. I have seen that unfortunately as well. Somebody decided that it would be really funny to bring in brownies and make those brownies with some sort of diuretic inside so that everybody had to run to the bathroom and it would be the funniest thing in the world. That is a bad practice. Do not do that. On a not so light level, because we know those things are crazy, right? When you're having contests, don't decide who the winner is before the contest starts. I have unfortunately seen that. I actually saw it here in District 11 when I first came here. Contests should be open to whomever is competing to win. Make sure that you're holding contests so that your winners are representative of the work that they put in, not of the relationships that they have. And the last one I think is incredibly important. If you are a club officer, don't just quit in the middle of the year because you just didn't tell anybody and you just never show back up. We're responsible for everybody within our clubs. And this is a great place to learn leadership, not just to walk away when it becomes difficult. So I hope that those are a couple things that you can take away. But number 1, without a doubt, no fist fights, especially if it takes 12 minutes to get from the lectern to the person that you want to punch and you're only walking 9 feet. If you ever saw Tim Conway on the Carol Burnett show, I saw that in real life. So those are bad practices. A lot more good ones I've seen over the course of time. Thomas.
What about best practices for having online meetings now or hybrid meetings? Or
we're actually just starting to go down that path of how to actually put that together. Has anybody gone on and looked at the district calendar? Are you familiar with the district calendar at all?
Yeah, I actually looked at it last night.
Okay. So Booker, you probably saw there's a bunch of stuff on the district calendar, a bunch of training stuff coming up, correct?
Correct.
Just about every week, we have something every week, every other week at the farthest apart. We have some sort of training coming up, whether it's for pathways, whether it's for base camp training, how to hold club contests, how to be club judges, all those things we're doing. We're trying to figure out best practices for how to do these meetings as well in hybrid meetings. I've been part of a club in Orlando since I left Orlando. We've been doing hybrid meetings for 1.5 years since I walked away. It's successful enough that they voted me as club president, even though I wasn't there. So I got voluntold to be a club president in a club in a different state. So there are some ways that we've figured out how to do some good hybrid meetings. We want to make sure we get the best ones out there, but there's going to be a whole training coming out about how to do Zoom meetings or Teams meetings, whatever it is, in a way that works for everybody. That will be coming. I can't say I have some great practices, but inclusion, the number 1 thing, be inclusive. As much as you can and be fun. If you notice, tonight wasn't all that serious. I tried to make people laugh once in a while. If you can do that at clubs, people love to laugh and they'll come back if you laugh. That's an important part.
And the crazy part, Scott, that actually is the exact reason why I've latched on to Denise, because if you know TLC and Gary, they've been doing the hybrid meetings for some time.
Yep.
And when you talk with Denise and Valerie, if you can't come away saying, whoa, you weren't paying attention.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's a couple of clubs that have been doing it for a while. So we're trying to tap into them to figure out exactly how to do it the best way so we can get them to come on and teach us the best way as possible.
Yeah, and that's the interest, is just picking everybody's brain.
Yep.
Because you can do things well, but somebody else always can do it a little better.
Yep, absolutely. So Thomas, did that help a little bit, even though I didn't really answer your question at all? I feel like I'm running for office here.
Yeah, I mean, telling me that there's something coming down the pike does work for me.
Okay,
That sounds
very
good.
cool. All right. All right. What else?
Yeah,
What
I
other
got something
questions
to
are
add
out
to
there?
that one.
Jason.
See, one of the practices that we started, we noticed that at the end of the meetings that we had in person, that everyone would stick around for 10, 15 minutes or longer. But as soon as we went online, it was as soon as the meeting was over, everybody's gone. So we started the meetings about 20 minutes early, saying, hey, come on early and make sure all your camera's working and so forth. And now people just come on so that we can converse and be informal and chat with each other before our meeting starts.
Absolutely. If you can get people to stay afterwards, we no longer have commute time between where we were and where we had to go. Like if you're in a morning club and your meeting ends at 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning and you were figuring out I have a half an hour to get to work, you don't have that half an hour anymore. You have enough time just to switch off Zoom and log on to whatever site you need to be on. So if you can stay a little bit longer, I've seen clubs that just hang out for 15, 20 minutes and just have the meeting after the meeting that you just talk and just socialize. And at 9 o'clock in the morning, we don't have adult beverages, but we generally have bacon. So that's an important component too.
The other thing that we started doing is having special events after the club meeting. So with the pandemic, several people have lost jobs and are looking for new jobs. And so our president has been scheduling networking events or events where we can help people go through and conduct mock interviews. It ties it right back into Toastmasters and practicing that impromptu muscle. And we kind of hold those afterwards. And that's actually been attracting members as well, because we'll advertise through social media that we're doing a networking event afterwards.
Very cool. I love that. That is fantastic. I've been looking at trying to do something like that for the district, but that's fantastic. You're doing it as a club. That's very cool. What other questions are out there?
All right, I have a question.
Yes, Joe.
You gave us a great word. What was it?
Voluntold.
Voluntold. Okay.
Voluntold.
I was voluntold to be VP of Education a couple years ago. And, wasn't too enthusiastic at first, but then I loved it. I loved doing the agenda and coming up with themes and all that. Well, recently we had to mix up our leadership because of the rules, and we don't have a very large group. And I was basically the only person available to be president of the group. And I do not feel that I am prepared for it. And I'm not sure what it involves. I will certainly go to the YouTube training that you mentioned. But what do you do when you got voluntold and you need a little bit of inspiration?
Find a mentor. Find someone to walk with you. Right now, you're looking at 31 other Toastmasters that have walked down a leadership path as well. There are 7 officers per club each year. And every year there's probably 5 or 6 new that come into term. Reach out and we'll be glad to find someone that that will walk with you through your journey to help you along the way to figure out where all those potholes are to avoid instead of to step in.
I mean, I guess my past president could do that, but
find someone who you're friends with. Just find somebody. If you can find somebody who you become friends with, that's all that much better.
Okay.
If it's your past president, awesome. If it's not, perfectly cool too.
All right. Thank you very much.
Find someone to walk with. All right, folks. Well, I will leave you with one last thought before we go tonight. All change happens in times of stress, and this is definitely a time of stress. But as we're trying to change things, there are 3 things we need to do to be able to change. We need to tell different stories. We need to show different artifacts, and we need to hold different rituals. The different stories help people make sense of what's happening. The different artifacts are those tangible memories that help them grab hold of who we are and what we're doing. And the tangible and the rituals are those things we repeat on a regular basis to help them get into new routines and new habits. Whatever you're trying to do for your club, this is a different year. We're probably going to be online for most of the year. Find those different stories to tell about why this matters and how they matter. Find different artifacts to be able to give them something to grasp onto, even if it's not physically right in front of them, and hold different rituals to help tie them in so that they're always coming back and they know where to find their tribe that's going to walk with them in the future. The more you can do that, the more successful you'll be. We will be here walking with you every step of the way. This has just been the beginning of a year. I cannot wait to see what happens for the rest of the year. It's going to be so much fun, and I can't wait to see where all of this goes. If you have questions, please reach out and ask. We are always here to help. If we don't know, we will find you some answers and help you along your way. I hope this has been incredibly beneficial for you. I know it has been for me. I'm glad you all joined, and I look forward to an upcoming year. And as I always say to everybody, toast on, my friends. Toast on.
Toast on, brother. Hey, and Scott, I owe you an apology. I owe you lunch. I got pulled away and looked up, and by the time I got away,
cool.
5 minutes left. So I owe you lunch, brother.